All right, guys, welcome back to Crossman Productions. It's Monday, or no, it's Tuesday. Man, I've had a long night. We had a storm hit Texas yesterday. Hopefully everybody, in our neighborhood has been safe. So um, Today I have Master Daniel Pesina. I know you guys see some of the stuff that I posted on Facebook. Man, you know, I'm super excited about having this guy. Um, as I've been doing this show, I've gotten to meet some of the most incredible people and hear some of the most amazing stories. This guy right here, you know, growing up watching, Mortal Kombat, playing the games. You know, I remember as a kid we used to play, the whole Atari before Nintendo came out, and you had the little ping pong balls going back and forth. And then finally, Nintendo came out and PlayStation, and then they started getting, the game started looking a lot better. One of the first games that I remember playing is Mortal Kombat, and then the way that whole thing was set up. So to be able to sit today and talk to the guy who was in the Mortal Kombat movies, and those the characters of the game was based on, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, who later in life I'd be sitting down with this guy. So I'm gonna bring Master Daniel Pesina on. What's up, brother?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm super stoked that you're here today, man.
Yeah, finally. It took us a while to line up. The Texas Chicago, the Dallas Chicago waves were off.
Right,
But we got it together. We got it together.
man. And I'm super excited. A lot of people know you from the whole Mortal Kombat. I want to kind of bring people in and get to know you as a person too. So the show is about your journey. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have you kind of introduce yourself and kind of share with my audience where you were born and raised and what was life like for Master Pesina growing up.
Yeah, I'm martial art master Daniel Pesina, old school master, meaning they're have a mind body connection, which is
Well,
kind of weird to explain. So book a lesson and you'll find out. But yeah, I was actually born and raised in Chicago.
well,
Yeah, I have three brothers, and actually two of the brothers are born in Texas.
oh
So
wow, cool.
yeah, yeah. Two of my
So
older brothers.
we should have a lot of common, man. We're both
Yeah, yeah.
born
So
in
we got
Chicago and
connection.
here I'm in Texas.
Yeah, we have a connection, and then my younger brother Raiden Carlos is born in Chicago. So
Okay.
there's two of us born here. So we come from my heritage is Hispanic. My mom and dad are Mexican from Mexico. My father got his citizenship, and my mother got their citizenship when my dad served for the U.S. Army during the Korean War.
Well,
So before it was a shortcut. If you survived the war, you got to
right,
be you got to be a
right,
citizen back in those days. They kind of extended a hand to you, you know,
right.
back then. But yeah, so you know, grew up in a working class family.
Right.
My dad's pro union.
Mm.
So we're like a union proud here.
Right, right.
Uh,
So did he work at the steel mill or out
uh,
there? Or?
my dad was a machinist for International Harvester.
Oh, okay, cool.
So he built tractors, like the
Oh,
big tractors, like the earth moving tractors that
wow.
are 2 or 3 stories tall. So yeah, he would make parts for
Cool.
them. Yeah, so he worked for them like basically his whole adult life from once he got out of the army. They set him up with through the GI Bill. They set him up with to be a machinist. So he went to trade school. He graduated trade school, and he went directly to working for International Harvester
Wow.
all the way till he retired when he was 65 years old. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's incredible. And that's the thing too about like our grandparents and the older generation. Like my grandfather worked on the railroad. And
yeah,
he spent his whole life doing that. Now it's hard to find a job for a young person to start with a job and end their career with the same job.
yeah. It's a different era.
Yeah.
Things have changed. With technology, not only technology, just we can talk about the whole ethics thing and the politics thing
Right.
forever. Just because my dad basically with one job could put four kids through college and pay a mortgage and have two cars
Wow.
and you know what I mean, and my mom could
Right.
basically stay home and have a part-time job just to get extra things. Back
Right.
in the day, the living wage was quite different.
Right. Yeah. You talk about technology. Back when we were growing up, we didn't need all the stuff that the kids now do.
Yeah,
That you know. So life was so much different.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I remember like my first video game was pong. Was like the ping pong where
right.
there's
Right.
two paddles going up and back and forth, and you're doing that. Me and my older
Right.
brother playing that. Back in the day, on a big
Right.
black and white TV.
Right. And then they had the breakout where you're breaking all the bricks.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, yeah,
These kids wouldn't survive on the games we had to grow up on.
yeah, yeah. I was the remote control on the TV because there's a age difference between my older brother and I, and also with my younger brother. There's a 8-year difference between the oldest one and me, and also eight
Right.
year difference between the youngest one and me. So being
Wow.
the youngest one for a while, I was like the remote control. I had to run up
Right.
and change the channels for them, and
Right.
if they wanted a glass of milk, I'd be running in the kitchen, get a glass of water, milk, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
it,
And then you had the old TVs with the bunny ears where you got to
yeah,
always
yeah.
adjust
They
the
had to
bunny
adjust
ears.
it and hold on to it so we could get a
Right.
clear signal. So it was growing up in a different era. You know.
Wow. Yeah. These kids nowadays would not survive this era, the era we grew up in. So, when did, as you were growing up, um, when did you start getting into martial arts?
My brothers took martial arts for a while. My older brothers, took martial arts for a while, and I was too young to take it at the time. But also, I was watching Charlie Chan the Detective one time, and I saw him throw. Naturally it's a stunt guy, but Charlie Chan, this fat little guy, threw this other guy
Right.
in one of the moves, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, that's judo. I learned some of that in the army," and I was like, "Wow, if I learned that, I can defend. I could beat up my brothers because
Right.
being the youngest brother,
Right.
they wouldn't beat me up, but
Right.
they would win all the time the races. If we'd race, they're bigger than me, so that naturally they win. They're stronger than me, they win. They're smarter than me, they can win. Just
Wow.
being older, I would always be, not take first. So I was like, man, if I
Right.
learned stuff, I could be number one.
Right.
So I bugged my dad forever to take me to do it, and my brothers did judo for like a month,
Mm.
and then they quit. And my
Wow.
dad was finally, I bugged my dad for years. And my dad was like, you know what? I'm going to take this guy because he's going to be like his brothers. He's going to go for a month and then it'll be over and they'll stop bugging me.
Right.
And no, not me. I kept it up for the rest of my life. I started
Wow.
when I was about to turn 11,
Oh, wow.
and I stayed with it.
Mhm.
I'm 65, and I stayed for it my whole flipping life.
Wow. Wow. So, I saw that you've trained with you know, several different professional uh, judo and martial arts uh, experts. What was the first one, and how did that kind of come about? And what did that mean, for your career and what you were trying to do?
You know what? It was. in the 60s. So I bugged my dad to take martial arts.
Right.
So we go to a school, and for one, there are no kids classes.
Mm.
I had to be a teenager to
Oh
get in the
wow.
class. So the guy looks at me and he's like, he's not a teenager. And my dad is like, how does he have to be? 13. And then he's like, yeah, he's 13. And the guy looks at him, and they're just talking. But
Right.
it winds up that the guy served in the military, and my dad
Oh,
served in the military. So they get to
right.
talking, and all of a sudden he's like, you served in the military. He comes up, and the guy's just like, I'll take your son because you served in the military and I served in the military. So I'm going to extend that courtesy to you.
Right.
And I know your son's not 13, but so here I am taking judo with 11 years old, going to be 11 years old with
Right.
13, 14, 15, 16-year olds.
Wow.
So, and there's no kids classes. There's no kids classes.
Right.
And, and I just loved it. I really enjoyed it. There was, I stayed with it until, and this is old school. So people know I stayed with it for 5 years, and I took my black belt test, and I was not allowed to wear a black belt because I wasn't 18 years of age. So
Wow.
I couldn't pay for my own lessons. I couldn't be drafted. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't. So I was not allowed to have a black belt because black belt back then meant more than just the martial art. It meant
Right.
being an adult,
Right.
having responsibilities. Knowing not only the martial arts, but being like for a man or a woman, you are
Right.
adult and have responsibilities. So they wouldn't let me, even though I passed that.
Right.
I wore a brown belt with a red stripe, which signified that I was under the age and I knew the requirements for a black belt, but I was not 18, so I could not wear a black belt.
Wow.
So I had this belt, and at that point, uh, Bruce Lee was coming out.
Mm.
So I really was like, oh man, I got to take Kung Fu. I got to take Kung Fu. So, all of a sudden I had my dad looking around for a Kung Fu school. So,
Wow.
so we live about 10 minutes from Chinatown in Chicago.
Mm.
And my dad's driving around and he sees like a Kung Fu sign, and he goes in and he talks to the guy.
Right.
And I started taking Kung Fu from this guy who would later on would wind up teaching Dan Inosanto, Bruce Lee's student.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so this guy would there is actually, his name is Wei Lun Choi, and there is actually open tournament in Hong Kong where there's no holds bar. There's really no holds bar. So it's not like you could break people's bones.
Oh wow.
So it's really underground and no holds bar, and this guy won it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very legal and very, very different. And this guy won it, and I wind up studying with him for 4 years.
Wow.
So studied with him for 4 years. Then he moved, and I went searching for a different kung fu school. And then I studied with a guy called Raymond Lime, who was actually an enforcer for the tongue. So he used to collect money for the tongue, and he was very, very good. Very,
Right.
yeah, he was proven in fights. Because
Wow.
you're going to collect money, you got to know how to fight, because
Right.
you're not only collecting money from people, you're collecting money from other gang members and other gangs. So
Right.
he was a very inspirational teacher, because everything he would work out with you.
Oh wow.
So anything you would do, he would do like more. So
Wow.
if we're hitting, like he was teaching iron palm and all this stuff. If he's hitting
Right.
stuff, he would be like, okay, we're going to punch this steel bag 100 times. He would punch it 200 times.
Wow.
We're going to do 200 push-ups. He would do like 300 push-ups. Man, this guy was like, just he would just do everything. We're going to do.
Right.
We're gonna kick. He's going to do more. He would just show you, like, yeah. So you were always striving to really master your body.
Right.
because you were always like, oh, if he's going to do it, I got to do it more. So he was
Right.
a really inspirational teacher that way,
Wow.
besides being very hands on and kind of like, showing, showing you really how it's done,
Right.
you know.
So,
So trained with him for like 5 years.
oh wow.
And then all of a sudden, mainland China, communist China opened up.
Right.
And I got the urge to go study kung fu in mainland China.
Oh wow. What was that like going from Chicago to China?
That was really, really strange because it's 1985 and they've never seen Caucasian people before, or Westerner before. Because even
Right.
though I'm Hispanic, they would consider I got round eyes. I'm a Caucasian.
Right.
There's two types of people. There's Asian and Caucasian.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
They judge you by they not judge you, but you're recognized by your eyes. If you have round eyes, you're not Chinese or Japanese or Korean
Right.
or Thai. You are the other people. So yeah, they never, especially for me, I have green eyes, so they never seen that. They never seen light skin.
Uh-oh.
They would they'd hit you with a stick with training because they think you're going to actually need it to fight. Like the instructors thought you were going to need it for combat.
Oh wow.
So the training is quite different,
Mm.
and purpose the purpose is different. Even though it was later on it moved towards more contemporary training. It was still very, very harsh training. Like every movement had purpose.
Right.
And you're training like 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night with the guy with a stick, beating you, pushing your body to the limits.
Right.
And so, the first week I couldn't walk,
Wow.
my body was so sore, but you know what? You adapt, you just keep, and you don't have a choice because you're there and that's all you gotta do. You're stuck there.
Right.
You're going to do it. So,
Right.
You realize that your mind and your body can really, conquer it. If your mind is willing, your body will follow.
Right. So, how old were you when you went to China?
20.
Oh, 20. So you're still a young guy.
Yeah.
So, what was it like when you first went there, and you get the sensei hitting you with a stick or the pole?
It's not something you can ever really expect. It's not something,
Yeah.
and two, he's not really, it doesn't, it stings. He's not hitting you really hard. It's more like that humiliation.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I already took martial arts, so I was just like, oh man, I could do better. I could do better. And two,
Right.
just the light taps, all of a sudden you're correcting your technique by yourself because you're like, oh, I mentally you're like, oh, I could do better than this. I am better than, you don't have to correct me. I could get this. So it's more it's not like it's more of the mental, stress you put on yourself more than, it's not like you're getting a welt.
Right. Right.
But it is like bringing you attention and bringing your focus. So that way you're not just like this. All of a sudden you're always, you learn to be always on and always giving it 100%.
Right. Wow.
So there's
So
no.
you were there in China for like 5 years, you said?
No. I was there for the first time. I was there for 6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, but man, it was like, yeah, there's we're working out in the sun, 100-degree weather, no water for 3 hours.
Wow.
And you don't think you could do that, but yeah, you can do that. You can survive 3 hours working out super hard in the sun.
Wow.
Without passing out.
Wow. So you went from there. You came back. When did you start getting into film, and what kind of brought you, kind of drew you into that?
Well, we started. It was we had a group that would train together. That went to China. Some of us went to China, but the group trained together. So it was myself and basically the whole cast from Mortal Kombat 1. So we were, back then we were trained together. So when we got back, we were competing on the circuit. circuit,
Right.
and we were at a Battle of Atlanta, and
Mhm.
we heard that there's some movie people were at the Battle of Atlanta looking for people to be in a movie.
Wow.
So myself, Ho Sung, who's Liu Kang, later Liu Kang, and Rich Divizu, who's Kano, were
Mhm.
at this tournament. We were like, if we get approached, if one of us get approached, we're gonna talk and say, hey, you should try these other guys,
Right.
too. So we know these guys are real good, so we're gonna speak up for each other. So
Right.
Hosung won that tournament.
Oh
Like,
wow.
and so he was like, oh, I got two guys who are really good, who would really do good in this movie. So all of a sudden we're trying out, they wouldn't tell us what the movie was.
Right.
No, so we're down and trying out for this movie, and we find out that it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of Use.
Right.
So we're gonna be doing stunts for the Foot Clan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we're gonna, which is a whole different thing. You learn a lot. You learn a lot because back then, actors couldn't do their own stunts because the
Mhm.
technology wasn't around. You could still get hurt. So
Right.
no actor were really going to do their own stunt work or things like that because you had to know martial arts to kind of do
Right. Right.
to be a stuntman. Now,
Right.
now and there's nothing wrong with it. Now I see self-taught people being, doing the work.
Right.
They taught themselves martial arts and they're doing stunt work. You know,
Right.
with just because of their pure physical ability.
Wow.
Right? But back then you had to know his martial arts because, if you watch the movie, you'll see the Foot Clan are always moving around. What
Yeah.
happens? The turtles can't see what they're doing, so we have to watch where they're kicking and jump in front of the kicks and punches, so that way we can sell it. And
Right.
and you can't be at a standstill because if you're at a standstill, you won't get there in time. So we have to be like ready to sprint and
Right.
in front of the movements that we're coming in that are coming up. So if you watch the movie again, you'll see us acting all like this because we have to be ready to jump in front of kicks and punches and
Right.
stuff like that. So we're getting ready to do that. So we it's you have to recognize what's coming.
Right. You brought up a good point too, because with the movie with those costumes, with the Ninja Turtles, it's got to be difficult to make those moves in those costumes. Yeah,
Yeah,
all the karate moves, because those costumes look like they're huge.
yeah. And two, you had to be under 6'5" to be
Oh,
a turtle. Otherwise, like if you're my size, I'll be like a 6 foot turtle
uh,
with the costume on. So
right.
there's a certain height requirement as well as skill requirement. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So your first film was, because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was huge during that time. So that was like your first film, and then you going from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Mortal Kombat, which is another iconic, in movie in our history. So what was that kind of like? What was how did you get from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Mortal Kombat?
So I was done doing stunts for that movie,
Mhm.
and I get my brother. Well, we had a mutual friend, but he was more of a friend of my brother. Like my brother Carlos Raiden,
Mhm.
as an artist, like he does. He just retired from Warner Brothers, so
Okay.
he was a lead artist and lead animator, lead motion capture uh, uh, for NetherRealm Studios, uh, Mortal Kombat series.
Mhm.
So he had a friend. We had a mutual friend called John Tobias.
Right.
So John Tobias called me up. He's like, "Hey, congratulations! I heard you did stunts in a film." And he's like, "Remember when we were younger and we would want to make kung fu movies with my dad's camera, back in the day, high 8 millimeter camera. We wanted to
Right.
make kung fu movies back when we were younger." And I started laughing. I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, I work for a video game company and I want to create a video game, but I want it to be with real people and I wanted to have real martial arts in it.
Wow.
And so, and he's like, "Can you help me with that?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, it'll be, he's like, it's going to be, I can't pay you much, but any idea you have, we'll put in the game.
Right.
And, I was like, "Oh, sure. What do we need to do?" And he's like, "We need to put a package together, a proof of concept."
Right.
So he had drawings, and I put together some choreography, which included fight sets and kun or katas movements, and
Right.
we put a package together, and we presented that to the company he worked for.
Right.
So then they liked the idea, and they sent a representative to hear more of our ideas.
Right.
So John was like, "Hey, we got. What do you want to do? We're going to meet with this guy. What do we want to do?" And so I was just like, "Well, I think we should take your idea of the Japanese ninja and change it into the Lin Kuei." And he's like, "What's that?" So I explained to him what the Lin Kuei was. I thought it was be a good idea to have the Lin Kuei and to embrace mysticism and put mysticism in the game,
Right.
and change the way the characters look to be what they look like today.
Okay.
So I concept and co-created what people later on called Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Wow.
So those are my concepts and co-creation. So we put that in the game and presented it to the game.
Right.
Put that in the package, and we had the meeting with this guy.
Right.
And this guy's name was Ed Boon.
Mm.
And at the end of the meeting, this guy didn't think that this game would make any money, and he said no.
Wow.
And so
Mortal Kombat originally got turned down.
Yeah, so by
Wow.
Ed Boon, the guy who's known as the creator now.
Right.
But really, he is the creator, but I don't think like people think it is, because the concept, the original concept of it is not his creation. We pitched it to him.
Right. Right.
And his creation was more of like the programming. So we gave him like ideas and what we wanted.
Right.
But he was just like, but in his defense, he was watching out for the company's money. He just didn't think that Mortal Kombat would make money.
Mm.
So he was like, "Nah, it won't make money." But he's like, but later on I heard they liked the idea of the game, and they wanted to have a video game, a mainstream video game, a totally different concept with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Mm.
Like when we were pitching Mortal Kombat, we never mentioned Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Right.
So that was totally a different idea that came up later. So
right.
I know now they say, "Oh, it's modeled after Jean-Claude Van Damme," but that's not true. That is not true.
Right.
That's a myth. So that deal fell through.
Right.
And John called me up months later, and he's like, "Hey, that deal fell through. They want us to create our concept."
Right.
And so John Tobias and I got together, and we locked ourselves in a room for a week, working 8 to 10, 12 hours a day, and created a framework for a video game called Mortal Kombat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So, one of the things that is funny about Mortal Kombat too is I remember when it first came out, a lot of parents thought it was controversial because of how violent, the game was, as far as like, the end moves, the fatality moves, the kind of the blood, because people got to remember back when video games first came out, you had Pong, you had two balls, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ball and two paddles going up and down. And now you got this, this game, Mortal Kombat was, about fighting and so I kind of remember how people thought, it was kind of controversial because it was so, at the time they considered it violent, you know what I mean? The way that,
Yeah, originally they only, we were only going to do 200 cabinets. It was never meant to go home to the home games. if you look at the deal that they sold, they sold the rights to somebody right away for like I think it was like $20,000 or something
Oh
crazy
wow.
like that. So
Yeah.
they really didn't know what they had.
Right.
The company really didn't know what they had. When we were creating the game, we would just like, you know, basically John put me in front of a camera and just said, do something cool. So
Right.
I just started creating all kinds of, movement and stuff like that. And we would look at it and see how we would, how we can use stuff. So, during one of the times when we were, we were having, we were doing power blows, like different blows would have, if you hold the button in a certain way, would have different power to the punch or kick, and then the
Right.
reaction would also be different. We wanted different reactions to different things.
Right.
So I was like, one time I was like, this blow is gonna hit you, and it's not gonna knock you out, but it's gonna kind of knock you senseless. So I was doing this
Right.
reaction like
Right.
this, and then we're looking at it, and then John was like looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, man, this can't end like this. And
Right.
John's like, yeah, we can't end like this. We got to think of a way to finish him.
Right.
We got to think of a finishing blow. Like in the Kung Fu movies, there's got to be like a death blow, a finishing blow.
Right.
We got to think of a way to finish him. And so all of a sudden John and I came up with fatalities.
Right.
Just out of that, all of a sudden we're like, okay, what do we wanted to have each character. Let's have 3 fatalities.
Wow.
For each character. So all of a sudden we're thinking of different ways of killing each other.
So, and I think that's why the young people love the game so much, is because of the finishing moves, the fatalities. If when you think about it, you look at the game, and you compare it to the original, different games that came out. You could see how innovative that game was, because you guys put actual characters, and not only actual characters, but made them in a way that they looked like an actual person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was uncommon in games at that time.
Yeah. We wanted to actually look like, there was a game out called Dragon Slayer.
Right.
And we wanted it to look like that.
Mm.
But they didn't want to give us the money to look like that, because
Right.
they were like, oh, this game is gonna suck,
Right.
But
Right.
later on, when all of a sudden when they saw what was happening, then everybody was like co-creator, and all of a sudden everybody jumped
Right.
on board. But really, it was just John and I just creating, John and I and Rich DeVizio Kano, the guy who did Kano, and my brother creating this video
Right.
game. That was just it. 4 guys.
Right.
But later on, all of a sudden you had everybody else jumping on board when they saw how awesome it was turning
Right.
out. But
Right.
it was just, we wanted, in the first game, we wanted tag teams. We had brutalities. We had
Right.
X-rays. We had secret characters already. We
wow.
wanted secret characters.
Yeah.
With the first game, we had so many different concepts that later on they just kept those ideas and used them for, down the line for in the game at other points in the game, but
Right.
we had like a lot of, different ideas, crazy, just craziness, but they didn't,
Right.
they didn't want to give us the money.
Right. So with all the different characters, when you guys were developing it, did you try to decide, like say you have Sub-Zero fighting, Raven or Raiden?
Yeah,
you
right.
have the fighting, and you look at these 2 characters, and you're like, we got to give somebody with strong point, somebody the weak points, and how would these 2 guys clash together? And then kind of rank the characters. You know what I mean? Where
yeah, that's the whole
matters what character you pick to fight another character.
Yeah, that's the whole balance. The balancing is with the testers. The testers, people forget, like, they're sure you have the concept creators,
Right.
which are myself, Tobias, Rich DeVizio, and my brother Carlos, concept creators, and then you have the team members, like the the programmer, the 5 programmers,
Right.
and the other artist. There's another artist, John Vogel, who did the background artist. But then you have the testers. Yeah, and two, you have guys, creating the hardware, the software, and the
Right.
hardware to mount it. It's like the team is about 12 people in the end. It's not like people now give the credit to 2 people,
Right.
but in reality, out of those 2 people, it was really only one person out of a part of the group, and naturally the boss. The boss
Right.
gets all the credit.
Right.
The boss gets all the credit, which is Ed. He gets all the
Right.
credit, but really he's didn't hardly do anything in my
Right.
opinion. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
he's one out of 5 programmers. So
Right.
but naturally you do need a leader. So he does have responsibilities. It's
Yeah.
not but the concepts and stuff like that were totally totally different team.
Right.
So going, and then for the balancing, you have testers testing the game and saying, hey, we need to adjust this guy's too powerful, this person
Right.
is this and that, and you got to do this or that, or and balance out the characters to make sure that the gameplay is good. So that's a whole different
Right.
the different creative side.
Right.
The unsung heroes.
Did you guys ever set it up where like you ranked the characters, like for their strengths, so that you had to pick a certain character to fight a certain character, or did it matter? But at the end,
no, everything was tried to balance out, but 2, it wound up that the characters that we developed last were stronger because they were just developed last. You know what we basically created the whole foundation with a character that later on became Johnny Cage.
Right.
And we modeled him after Daniel Rad, Iron Fist.
Right.
So he was that's who we modeled that character after. Then the next character we did was Kano. And then after that we did Raiden.
Right.
And then after Raiden, we started working on Scorpion. And then with Scorpion, we realized like the crunch time with Scorpion, all of a sudden, that's when people really started to be like, holy shit, you guys have an awesome game.
Right.
So all of a sudden we had a lot of people, coming by. So all of a sudden when we started doing Scorpion and Sub-Zero,
right,
those characters became really powerful because the management really started noticing the game, and so that was the first characters that they like realized like holy cow,
right.
You know what I mean? And it's pretty funny because it's like those were my even though I'm no longer with the game, it's like those are my concepts, those are my creations. So anytime I see them, I'm like holy cow, I would never thought that
right.
I'm the main creator. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I wasn't in the game, they would never be in the game. So it's pretty cool to know that, or to see other actors step in and do add to stuff that I created is awesome. I love that. But and then so after that, then we started filming Sonya Blade, and then at the end we because Ho-Sung wanted to see what everyone was doing and do better moves. Ho-Sung wanted to go last. Who was Liu Kang. So he wanted to go last because he wanted to upstage everyone. So he kind of was like, oh no, I'm going to go last. So that way I could do the cooler moves or things like that, because he didn't realize, like in the end, I was like, no, we there's certain moves that we can't do because they won't translate well to 2D.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I was creating the fighting concept, what do they call that now? They call it fight design. Now, back then that we didn't have that label, but I created the whole fight design of it. So, I was just like, oh, we can't do this or that because the techniques would look the same. Like an axe kick and a front kick look the same, or an inside crescent and an outside crescent look the same as a front kick and an axe kick. So automatically we're like, okay, we don't do any of those kicks, because we just do a front kick because it's just a waste of time to do all the rest of the kicks.
Right.
So we had different techniques that we knew, like, oh, we don't do those because they just look the same.
Right.
But it took hundreds of times of of techniques and filming hours. Like the first game took over 1,000 filming hours to make.
Wow.
And
That's
I
crazy.
have 7.5 hours of filming left that survived.
Wow.
So, and it's not even the original footage. All the original footage was erased to save money. Like
Wow.
stuff that we created the original game with will
Right.
never be seen because we erased it to save money.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So what you're
Yeah.
so what you're seeing, what I posted online and what you're seeing, with the creation of Mortal Kombat is uh, is much later. We would film for hours,
Right.
and then we would study the film, and then we would hand it along to the programmers and other artists to study it later on down the line.
Right.
So that way we can make adjustments later on. So then we would get together and we would make adjustments. So a lot of time when you're watching the film, we're already making adjustments on film, on stuff that we already created.
Right.
So it was like just like so like unorganized, but so weird to be like, it became sometimes we would be making faces because we would be like, hey, I'm the one who created that, and you're telling me what I just created. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
Right.
they wouldn't know where it was in the time frame. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like I created I created the uppercut, like a big uppercut from a style kung fu style called a northwestern style called Fansichuan, tumbling boxing. So they had a really big uppercut that's used to hit the bladder and scrape up the body to punch that, and then you use the elbow in the end, so it's kind of like this. So that's why that we have that big uppercut, because I took it from that style. But then
Wow.
later on, they were telling me, "Oh, you got to make it big like this," and I'm like, "Dude, that's what I was just doing." So it's kind of like, you get tired,
Right.
you get irritated, but like a lot of the concepts are like, a lot of the concepts when you're looking at like the old tape came from like a lot of kung fu moves, like
Right.
Jax's punch to the ground I got from Chen style Tai Chi. So
Right.
the move in Chen style Tai Chi that I borrowed for like, so every character like in there is doing something that's
Right.
associated with a traditional martial art.
Right. I can imagine too how difficult it was to translate actual martial arts into a 2D image, uh, on a game, so people understand this is the actual move in real life, and this is what it looks like on the game. Because I mean, you got to program the actual game to make mimic the real move.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it was like a lot of thought into. It wasn't just like, that's why there was so much filming. There was a lot of thought into all the techniques and
Right.
everything that survived, or anything, just putting into stuff, or this. A lot of time when I watch the video game, I just start laughing because I just brings back so many memories or things like that. Like, examples, Sonya's kiss of death.
Right.
Like John was looked at me. He's like, we got to think of a finishing move for Sonya.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, we got to give her a kiss of death. And then John is like, she can't kiss anybody. And then I look at John and I was like, at that point, we can rip hearts out people's hearts. We can decapitate people. We can electrocute people, and we can fry people with fire. But Sonya can't kiss anybody. And then John is like, no sex in the game. That's sex. We're going to get shut down. We can't have sex in the game.
Right.
And I was just like, well, can she kiss her hand, blow it? It looks like a butterfly, hits it, and then you blow up.
Right.
And John said, we can do that.
Right.
So we filmed it. So every time I see Sonya's kiss of death, I just start laughing because Sonya can't kiss you, but she can murder you.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So it was just like, it was just kind of hilarious how that idea of the kiss of death came up. How I wanted to have her kiss you, but you
Right.
couldn't do that because you can't do that in a video game where you murder people. But
Yeah.
you can do the other thing. So
Right. Right.
anytime I see even in the new games when I see the kiss of death, I just start laughing because it just reminds me of that story. Of just
Wow.
crazy stories. Yeah.
That is crazy. That's crazy. So no, from the video game, how did it kind of translate into the film?
So with the film, they just started, you know, uh, they just started trying selling off the rights to the
Right.
film. So with the film, though, I didn't actually work in the film per se. We did uh, fight scenes and stuff like that to give the producer ideas of how the fighting in the film would be. So
Right.
he came by and we put together some choreography and stuff like that. Uh, One of the pieces is in, like, if you see a Las Vegas show, I'm fighting Kung Lao, and I think and Rich is fighting my brother, and that's one of the pieces we put together for the producer of the movie, so that way he can kind of film us and
Right.
transfer over ideas. Two, they would ask us to uh, put together stills
Right.
for framework for storyboards. So if you look at a lot of the pictures that I put together, you can see them in the movie. Like, they took
Right.
the actual pictures and then they put the storyboard in the movie. So they were using,
Right.
like, the stuff we used, like, in the video game for the movie. So it
Right.
was kind of, yeah. So it translated over pretty good.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the movies, the movies are incredible too.
yeah,
Just going back from the original, and then they did the remakes. Uh, but the thing I like the most is, and I think that the favorite characters, of course, are Sub Zero, Scorpion, Reptile, Smoke.
yeah,
Uh, which is which is cool because then those like growing up, we used to always fight over who's going to be those characters. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Who's going to fight? Yeah, and to be able to you being the one to create that. When you guys would play the game, what was your favorite character?
I When I play the game, I like to play Raiden. I really
Oh,
like
right.
yeah, I really love Big Trouble in Little China.
Uh-huh.
Raiden, James Pax from Little Big Trouble in Little China.
Right.
That Raiden. That's who my brother modeled Raiden after. So I really enjoy that, even though we created the Johnny Cage as like my favorite character because we created the whole game basically on that character. He didn't have a
Right.
name; he was just known as Danny. They gave him the name later on, but
Mm.
that's the father of all Mortal Kombat characters is that Johnny Cage character. You
Right.
know, uh, the night before the game was going to go into production, John called me up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, "I want you to come in and I want you to be on the side of the cabinet."
Mm.
And I was like, "What?" He's like, "I want you to." He's like, "I couldn't." He's like, "You're the only one who believed in this game." He's like,
Right.
"You helped me create my dream.
Right.
You helped me create this game, and me and you did this.
Mm.
We created this game. And I want you to be on the side of it as a thank you." And I
Wow.
was like, "Wow!" I was really touched, and I came in the following day and I took pictures, and he plastered me on the side of the game for that. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was just cool to be a part of it. So a part of that. But looking at the concept of the game, like I used to compete in martial arts, so that's why Scorpion has a rope dart. It's in the old days they used to use it to pull horsemen off their horses.
Right.
So
Right.
later on, it became a personal weapon, a hidden personal weapon. But originally it was for that, and that's why the extension, or and you know, that's different, different, different techniques and different personalities in there are because I wanted to throw different things in there.
Wow.
So it's
So
cool
let
to
me
always do that.
let me ask you this. So, I mean, you guys spent so much time on this thing, developing it and getting it just right. When it finally hit the market and it became the phenomenon that it did, you know, what was that like for you guys?
You know what? When it finally did that, I I I enjoyed it, but I was more. I didn't bask in that glory. We were already talking about doing number two, so I was already planning on doing what we missed out on number one to having
Uh,
number two. So I was
yeah,
already more excited about working on Mortal Kombat 2.
right,
So I was already thinking like, oh, we have to do this. Who I was already planning on who to get for characters for that game. You
right,
know, basically, I would pick out the characters for the game and who was going to be the game, and I wanted to make sure that for Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, I wanted all the characters to look like they can fight. You know, I didn't want them to be like bodybuilders per se. I wanted them to be more athletic looking.
right, right,
So that's why in Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 they have a certain look, and then later on the look changed. They started to hire models because they just wanted to have it a different look for the game. But
right,
originally I just wanted the people uh, who for 1 and 2 everybody in there could kick and punch.
right.
You know, they could actually fight. Yeah.
Wow. So, and then you got for two. Is there, if you like could go back, is there anything you would have done uh, different, or would you love to have added if you was if there was like a you were involved with like a Mortal Kombat 3?
The only thing I would change is I would have got a lawyer right away.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. When we did 200 games, the whole thing was, when we pitched the game, they said we were going to do 200 games, and I told them, if you do 201 game and give me a game, you can make as many games as you want. But,
right.
but John and Ed promised me we're only going to do 200 arcade cabinets.
Oh well.
So when they pre-sold 10,000 arcade cabinets, I looked at them and they were like, "Hey, don't worry, we're going to give you a bonus."
Hmm.
And then it went to the home system, and I looked at them and they're like, "Don't worry, we're going to give you a bonus."
Yeah.
I didn't get paid for 6 weeks creating Mortal Kombat. So for the first 6 weeks of creating the game, of using my intellectual property and my characters and stuff like that, I never got paid for that.
Wow.
So I was expecting to get paid for it, and then
Right. Right.
and in the end, the owners of the company asked me if I had what John and Ed promised me in writing,
Yeah.
and I didn't have it in writing. I should have got it in writing, but I didn't. But I did tell them that you can ask John and Ed in front of me if they promised me that stuff.
Yeah.
But that never happened, and so I never did number 3.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, never.
That's a huge lesson too.
Yeah.
For
But it
any
happens all the time. It happened to Stan Lee. It happened to the guy who created Superman, the guy who created
right.
Batman. It happens all the
Right.
time in this industry. It happens. So that's the lesson to be learned. Is anybody out there who's creating? Make sure you try to protect yourself. Just because a promise is nothing.
Right. Right. Well, and you always start off as friends. Everybody starts off as friends, and they're like, "Well, I'll give you this free thing here, free thing there," in the hopes that later you're going to get something in return for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Well, they're good for it because they're friends of mine."
Yeah.
But then after a while, after the success hits and everybody's getting paid, and you're the one not getting paid.
Yeah.
Then that's when stuff comes into play. So, regardless of who you're in business with, what you're working with, you should always get that, in writing in the beginning, so that later on, when the game's successful, and in success changes people too.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Right now, and two, they do have a right to say they created Mortal Kombat because they did create Mortal Kombat, but a lot of times it's like it's not the way they they don't say it.
Right.
If you talk to them, they never say exactly how they created it. It's always sketchy because they know that they
Well,
they didn't really create it the way they said they created it.
Yeah, because it was a collaboration. It was a collaboration of different people.
It was really a
Yeah.
collaboration, and it's especially in Chicago, there was a sports writer who said that Michael Jordan would never carry the team.
Right.
So nobody wants to be that sport writer.
Right.
So one of the guys who says he's who as co-creator never wants to say that. Oh yeah, I turned it for the first round. I turned it down.
Right.
He never wants to say that because you don't want to.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. But the game was very successful. The movie successful. And then you do a lot of guest appearances.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of Comic Cons and like different conventions.
Yeah, I do Comic Con conventions. Mm-hmm. Get to travel internationally too. So there's get to travel all over for it. Just kind of getting out there, meeting people who love the game. Also martial arts. Sometimes I get to go to a different area and get to teach martial arts in somebody else's school. It's always, people always want to, not always, but people like to learn Scorpion's weapon from the actual Scorpion, from the original Scorpion. Not, we're lucky to have other people come on and contribute to the character of Scorpion. But being the concept creator and the original Scorpion, it's always cool to learn it, to learn the actual Scorpion's weapon from the guy who put it in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what's next for you? I mean, I know you just got back from a convention. Do you have any conventions coming up?
Gonna shoot. I have like a signing in Indiana coming up in July. Also, traveling to, if people are interested, they can hit me up on Instagram, Master D Pesina, or on Facebook, Master Pesina. I post where I'm going. If there, any questions or anything like that, they're welcome. Come out and chat with me at the event, hang out. I usually travel with my brother Carlos. He just retired from Warner Brothers. He was in every Mortal Kombat game from conception. He's the only one who survived from conception. I'm talking from the original idea, from the original pitch to Midway and Ed, all the way to the end. He's the only one who survived that.
Wow.
So yeah, and then he worked on every single game. He got to be Predator, he got to be Terminator, he got to be Freddy Krueger, he got to be Alien, he got to be Michelangelo, he got to be every flipping character in the game, and his wife does all the fatalities. So whenever you see parts flying all over the place, that's his wife, all that artwork. So they kept it. They're a very talented family. So have any questions on that, or on he designed their motion capture studio. So did continued with the fight design. So it's all Pesina brand fight design in Mortal Kombat.
Cool. So if you guys are in the area, definitely check out Master Pesina's Instagram. You have Facebook, right?
Yeah, Master Pesina too.
You check out his social medias. Figure out where he's going to be, so you go see him. And if you're into doing the gaming concepts or creating video games, this is the guy you want to talk to. Yeah. So definitely. Man, I appreciate you for taking the time out and being on the show, brother. I had a great time getting to talk to you, man.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me, and it's, looking forward to chatting later on. Maybe you can have my brother or some of the other guys on.
Well, absolutely, yeah, definitely. If they were to come on, and your brother and his wife, and we'll talk about how their part was, and then being the the one who survived the whole the whole gambit of this thing. I'm sure he's got some really interesting stories too. So
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
Well, cool, brother. All right, man. Again, thank you. I had so much fun with this, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and everyone listening. Remember, we're all gamers, so take care of each other.
All right, guys. Remember, you guys are uniquely designed with a purpose, and always keep moving forward. Until next time, peace.
Get over here.